Okay, so it has been almost a year, I think, or maybe it is about a year since I came back to this game. I started playing again back in December of last year, and one thing I always liked considering was who my favourite frames across the years were, and I figured I'd just do a personalised video of my favourite frames that I enjoyed playing this year. They don't have to have been released or reworked or even, buffed in any way, just the ones that I've enjoyed playing the most. This isn't a ranking based on how good a Warframe is or whatnot, it's just what I enjoyed playing, and hopefully you guys will end up trying these Warframes out if you have not before. Before we get into the top 5, I've got to go over a quick honourable mention. Limbo was very close to being on this list, but I just don't think I've played him quite as much as these other frames. Limbo was of course the frame that kind of kick-started this channel's content. That was never the original plan actually. The Limbo video was kind of random and you guys seem to really love it, and then we revisited that build a few months later. He's still extremely fun, super unique to play, I absolutely love the playstyle, and of course learning those Limbo mechanics really helps my enjoyment with him, and I always have a soft spot for his playstyle. Coming in at my number 5 spot we have Volt. Now what you got to understand about the reason I enjoyed Volt so much is that before I came back to this game, the last experience I had with Volt was before his new player rework or patch. Basically what I was used to was him draining energy when holding his shield and only being able to use a secondary. So coming back to the game and realising that you can run around the shield without, moving slower, no energy drain, and you can use your primary, it was a really nice surprise that I wasn't expecting. Volt has always been one of my favourite frames, so it makes sense that he'd make the list, but it wasn't just the rework that made me enjoy him so much. Of course Volt would later on get another deluxe skin, which in my opinion he really needed because I think Volt's deluxe skin is pretty lackluster. This new one is much better, and it also had some decent synergy with the Okina Incarnon. The build I thoroughly enjoy on him is running Raffle Advance, the Okina Incarnon, and then Arcane Ice Storm. It's just a super sick combo, he can run through any mission super easy, and the fact they also made the damage on his 4-way better against unarmored enemies at least. Its overall build and playstyle have just been more versatile, and I've thoroughly enjoyed using him throughout the year. And although I'm not a big fan of his Proto skin, it was still a nice update, at least in terms of his content. Okay, moving on to the number 4 spot, this was a big surprise for me, and admittedly this is mostly based on just fashion, and that is Ureli. I really don't enjoy playing frames unless I like how they look aesthetically, and Ureli got a really solid deluxe skin this year, but the helmet was trash. But luckily she also had a 10-gen helmet that goes really well with it, so I ended up giving her more of a shot, and she was a lot more strong since the last time I tried her. The buffs and quality of life have made her much stronger, and she's still underrated. Easily one of the best secondary weapons platforms in the game, super fast, bunch of mobility, really enjoyable abilities overall. I'm a big sucker for debuffs. Buffing your weapons with raw is one thing, but it's kind of overdone and a bit too boring. I prefer the debuff abilities like, Nezha's Halo for example, so naturally I was always drawn to her first ability, which in my opinion is probably one of the best debuffs in the game. Her 3 and her 4 are also excellent, and I love the tankiness that she gets from her 2, especially with its iframes as well. Her augments offer a bunch of different playstyles. You can remove the board if you don't want it, but me personally I enjoy it even though I bump into every surface. I love the augment that increases her fire rate, and also the one that allows you to launch your discs is so much fun, and it also combines really nicely with her 4 and kind of breathes new life into it. She has multiple playstyles you can go around, but I've been using this frame consistently throughout the year and is one of my favourite weapons platform right now. Also considering that I'm not really big on secondary weapons in this game and she just makes them more fun. Highly recommend you try her if you have not. Coming in at the number 3 spot is Caliban. Caliban was also one of the earlier frames we made a video on, so I have enjoyed him since prior to his rework, mainly because he wasn't that well received and loads of people thought he was terrible, which admittedly he wasn't great. He was relatively close to the bottom of the pack before his rework, but I always thought his playstyle was pretty fun, caster focused, huge debuffs, surviving on a lot of shield regen. He just made for a really fun playstyle even though his kit was lacking in the numbers department, so when his rework got announced it was just perfect. It was already one of my favourites of the year, but since his rework he's become much stronger, and we just got a new mod that affects his damage on his sentience. The rework was incredible. It took everything about his kit that he was already good at and just made it better without losing his identity, making it so that your sentients are now actually a formidable force in terms of damage. That's a hard thing to balance when we've had, metas such as Wukong in the past. I think Pablo really pulled this off, keeping his 4 and his 2 exceptional at what they do, which is making enemies super weak, and then giving him his own personal sustainability tool with his 1 and his own unique status effect. Caliban really stands out on his own now and is actually quite popular. And of course, he is even stronger now with the new aura mod. Being able to boost your summon and companion damage by 75% is insane on him, and there's plenty of ways to expand the amount of summons and companions, or at least make your own army on him and just have them play the game for you. I don't even really see it as a lazy playstyle, I just think it's a ton of fun. It was already becoming one of my favourites before the rework, and I think Pablo just made it so it was a guaranteed favourite of the year and in general. At the number 2 spot, we might have a bit of recency bias here, but that's why they're at number 2 and not number 1. As of right now, they probably would be my number 1, and that is Nyx. I did start playing Nyx again earlier in the year before her rework landed because I wanted to get more acquainted with the kit and see if I could find a way to make it enjoyable. Eventually I did start, enjoying the playstyle, but she was still a bit boring to me. But after the rework got announced and then it dropped, I have been thoroughly impressed and I've been playing this Warframe constantly ever since. Sure, it's really recent, maybe still fresh, but combine this with her exceptional fashion across the board and the new Eleanor skin, which I just can't seem to get off of using. I know some people didn't really enjoy the rework because they deemed it a bit lazy, but I think it was rather similar to what Caliban got. It makes her just a better version of what she was already good at. Her mind control target does a lot more damage now, especially considering you can easily strip armor whilst getting buffs for yourself. Her 2 is an amazing sustainability tool, meaning you don't have to use Assimilate, which I prefer not to use Assimilate every single time because, it's a bit slow and boring. Chaos synergizing with the damage on her 4, and just spreading all that radiation to give yourself a huge crit bonus. I feel her entire kit is useful and enjoyable now. Her aesthetic is even better. However, I can't put her at number 1 because I know there is a little bit of recency bias going on here. And overall, I think I've gotten a bit more enjoyment out of the number 1 spot, even as the update has passed by, which now finally moving on to our number 1 spot, my favourite frame of the year. I think a few of you guys will have seen this coming based on the videos on this channel, and that is going to be Kome. Probably the most perplexing Warframe in existence, at least in terms of the way it split the community on their opinions. That's not the reason I like her, I'm on the side of that she's kind of really fun. She is specifically meant for endgame usage, hence why I'm biased. I do like the occasional long survival, endurance mission. She somehow mastered the ability to make each one of those runs fun and different based on getting your decrees in a different order. The decree system in Deviri was always fun to me. When I came back, it was one of the most refreshing parts of the game. Going on a really long endurance run in Deviri, whilst you and your teammates are just constantly scaling with the enemy, it was something refreshing. But eventually, as it got boring, I started to miss, the decree system and how it wasn't really a part of any other area of the game. Taking the decree system, mastering it, putting it in a frame like Kome, who has, in my opinion, pretty enjoyable skills. Status spreading is always very satisfying, and then combining her kit with something like Sickening Pulse. I am yet to get bored of this combination, nuking the room with all of your combinations of elements, decrees, easy to build for survivability, taking whatever weapons you want, having them scale endlessly. She just feels incredibly free to use, and I don't even think she's really that bad in the shorter missions either, but I know that's debatable. And also, her fashion is probably the best of any base frame that I've seen. She doesn't need any skins yet and I think she looks S tier. Also great sound design. Just a frame that I've really enjoyed and without a doubt is my number 1 favourite frame of the year. Like I said, none of these frames had to have been either reworked or released within the year, just the ones I've enjoyed playing the most around this time period. It's also worth noting that I am leaving out a particular Warframe and I'll be doing this every single time we revisit this series at the end of each year, and that is by excluding my main, that is Wukong. If I was to put Wukong in any of these lists, he'd pretty much always be number 1, as considering that he's my main frame, it's just because I enjoy him so much and I find him fun no matter what he gets, whether it's buffs, nerfs, reworks. I've enjoyed him so much for a long time, I've always got a bunch of builds on him, so he is pretty much excluded each time we do this. And to be fair, if the list doesn't change too much as to what my favourites were by the end of 2025, then I won't revisit the video. And besides, we will have to do, the tier list and whatnot. And maybe I'll have to do a top 10 list of my overall favourite frames of all time. I would also love to hear what your guys' favourite frames of the year were, so by all means, leave your top 5s in the description. I'm very curious to see who you guys have been enjoying. Recency bias or not, doesn't matter, just let me know. And also before I leave you, I want to thank you guys for an incredible first year of this channel. It was started 8 months ago, although the process of rebuilding my account after the absence started back in December. Like I said, we're almost at 7k subs by the end of this first year, which I'm really grateful for. That it's a huge amount of progress, and honestly the views on the videos on average, at least when they pop off, is far above what someone with 7k subs should be getting. Whether you have come from the previous YouTube channel that is Apex and Marvel Rivals based currently, whether you've come from knowing me as Guapi or you're just a new Warframe viewer and enjoying the content, liking, subbing, sharing, or just watching the videos. I really appreciate the support. It does wonders for me. And thank you so much for a great first year within, my Warframe content creation. I'm gonna see you guys in the next video, which will be next year. Till then, take care.